Good day, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps YouTube Live. Welcome to our YouTube channel today on June 24th, 2025. My name is Eric Olsen, attorney for 46 years, the founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. We educate seniors how your income is protected and why you don't need to worry. If you have any questions, put them in our chat feature. Be glad to answer them. Okay. The topic, the title today is, seniors, why is your income protected? I'll tell you, one reason is right here. Okay, that's a picture of Franklin Delano Roosevelt with some of his cabinet members, including his Secretary of Labor, Francis Perkins, signing the Social Security Act in 1935. Social Security has been protected since its inception. Debt collectors cannot take it. It's safe for your needs. You don't need to use it to pay debt you can't afford to pay. All forms of Social Security disability, SSI, regular Social Security, it's all protected. And then in 2012, a rule was put into effect that instructed banks that they are to automatically protect twice the amount of Social Security benefits you get deposit into your bank account, that are automatically deposited in your bank account, from garnishment. In the event someone would sue you and they tried to garnish your bank account, the bank looks at your account. They can determine if money came from Social Security. They take that monthly sum times 2 and protect that automatically, even if some of the money in that account came from another source. So if you got $1,200 in Social Security, $2,400, twice that monthly amount is protected from garnishment. Okay, so even if there was other monies that went in there. I don't expect your bank manager to know that rule. I've yet to meet one that does, but there's a department of the bank that deals with garnishments. I can assure you they know the rule. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat feature. I'm sure glad to have you here. We got things to talk about. There's other laws that protect your income. There's federal laws and state laws that protect your pension. Back in 1974, ERISA was passed. That's the Employment Retirement Income Security Act. As long as a pension complies with that federal law, your pension is protected by federal law from garnishment. But I've never seen a pension garnished yet. If it's not protected under ERISA, there'll be a state law that protects it. So your pension is going to be protected. 401ks, IRA, virtually any form of retirement is protected. Okay. And when I say that your Social Security is protected twice the amount, any type of federal benefit, like if you're a retired federal worker, like you worked for the post office, that's a federal benefit. If you worked for the railroad, that's a federal benefit. Twice those monthly sums are protected. Okay, so good to have you here. And you can put questions in the chat feature. I try to answer them as they come, and then I've got other things to talk about as we go. A goodwill deletion letter. Have you ever sent one to a creditor and our collections removed negative or on credit? No, I don't know that. No, I have not. I've never heard of a goodwill deletion letter. I can guess what it means. They delete a negative entry on your credit. We do have a program that helps called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. Once you've been part of Helps for at least 3 months, you can contact us. We can enroll you in that program. We give you the link so you can enroll in that program. It's free to rebuild your credit if that's what you're interested in doing. A lot of our clients don't care about credits, but some of their rebuilding their credit, but some of our clients do, and you can rebuild your credit. Okay, I'm glad you can hear me fine. Good, thank you. So I've had fun. I don't know, maybe you have, with Google and artificial intelligence. If you ask Google a question, sometimes it will, it'll give you, it's called AI overview. Okay. And I put one in here today. I said, why don't nonprofit debt management companies tell seniors about protected income? And see what it would say. And I got an interesting source. I'll show you. I'll tell you what it says here. Here we go. Here it is. Why don't nonprofit debt management tell seniors about protected income? And then this is the overview. It says some nonprofit debt management companies may not inform seniors about protected income for several reasons. Financial incentive. Debt management companies may receive donations from the same banks that hold their clients' debt, creating a potential conflict of interest. If they inform seniors that their income is protected, seniors might not enroll in debt management plans, which could impact companies' donations. Well, gee, that's kind of interesting. Let's see. That kind of sounds like my words. It's funny, artificial intelligence picks up websites and other information to put in here, and that's exactly the truth. The reason they don't tell seniors about their protected incomes, it would affect their donations. And so even the nonprofit ones are hesitant to tell a senior, by the way, you don't need our help. If you're enrolled with debt management or debt settlement company, and you're a senior and you were never told, by the way, your income is protected, you don't need our help. No one can take your Social Security. No one can take your pension. You are given complete information. They acted in their own financial interest by not telling you about your financial rights, the fact that your income is protected. And you deserve to know the truth. So they give it a couple other reasons. And one of them is that ignorance. Some debt management companies may be unaware that certain types of income are protected. Well, maybe the guy that's enrolling you doesn't realize it, but the uppity-ups know about it. And then the other reason they say decision to withhold information. Some may choose not to mention protected income, believing it is not relevant to their debt management service, or that senior might not be able to handle the information. Well, I think a lot of seniors would like to handle the information. They would like to know their rights. They come up with an excuse, but when it boils down to, it's like at the beginning, they have a conflict of interest. That way they don't give seniors the complete truth. Okay? No, we don't give referrals for divorces. There's plenty of attorneys that you can Google to find that out. Okay. So good to have you here. So I did this one too. I had fun with this. So you may be wondering about us. What would happen if I typed in, let's see here. It says, I typed in, does helps law firm helps seniors with debt, to see what they would say about us. So this is what it came up with. I thought it was kind of interesting. Better get it out here. There we go. It says, yes, helps law firm, and it has our full name, focuses on helping senior citizens and disabled individuals with debt issues, particularly those struggling with debt collection harassment. And it tells what we do. We help stop debt collectors from contacting you directly, so you can manage your finances without the stress of constant calls and letters. And then they help clients understand and protect their Social Security, pension, disability, and VA benefits, which are often shielded from debt collection efforts. We provide legal representation to those who qualify, act as attorney to receive and handle communication with debt collectors. Under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act passed in 1978, if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to communicate with the attorney, not you, and that's what we do. We help people in all 50 states. Then it says here, low-cost service. Their services are offered on a sliding scale based on making legal help available to those, and we don't turn anyone away. Many of our clients get our help for free. Education and support. That's why we're doing this YouTube Live. Helps educate clients about their rights and options, offering guidance on issues like student loan repayments, suspected scams, and even transportation housing options. It's kind of unlike AI when it's talking about us. That's good. And then it says, focus on peace and mind. Aims to bring peace to the lives of their clients by addressing their debt-related anxieties and helping them maintain their financial independence. In essence, helps act as a shield against debt collection harassment for vulnerable seniors, ensuring they can focus on their well-being and enjoy the retirement benefits they have earned. Well, that's pretty good. I don't mind that at all. Sounds pretty good. Okay. So let's see if I got some questions I can deal with here. So Farmhouse says, I had helped send letters to the creditors. One of them wrote me and wants to speak to me to confirm something. They also offering a 1/2 settlement, Capital One. Well, you know, first off, you got to remember, in most states, an original creditor, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that prevents a debt collector from calling you or contacting you by phone or mail applies to debt collectors, not original creditors. Now, in a few states that have taken the the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and made it state law. But Capital One is an original creditor. They're probably not breaking the law to contact you. You don't have to contact them. And perhaps the reason they contacted you is because they haven't got our letter yet. If you enrolled recently, sometimes we tell people that it takes, at least 2 to 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks for them to receive our letter, to process it and stop the contact. Okay. Now, our goal when we get when someone enrolls in helps, we enroll you over the phone. You can be enrolled immediately if you want to be. We send you an email. You get an email confirming you're a member of helps, and it gives you instructions how to get us the collectors. You can text them, fax them, email them, or mail them to us. Okay, whatever's easier for you. And then our goal is within 24 to 48 hours to send out a cease and desist letter to the debt collectors you don't want to hear from anymore, or the collectors, the creditors. And we're pretty good about doing that. But, it goes out by U.S. mail. And sometimes it might take the mail a week to get there. And then it might take them another week to process it, to put it in their system, not to bother you. So, and then you got to give them another week or two for lag time. Okay, so that's why. Okay, that could be why you got that notice. They just haven't processed, but you don't need to call them back. And once in a while, someone will call me and say, "Well, they've offered me a pretty good settlement," and I'll say, "Well, you've got 30,000 worth of debt. The debt that you want to settle is 3,000. You got 27,000 of other debt. Does it really make sense to settle this debt when you got 27,000 in other debt? You don't need to settle it if you don't want to." So, anyways, something to think about. Mary asks, how do you know if you need a will? Okay, so I'm 74, been an attorney for 46 years. I've done a ton of wills in my early practice. In fact, we have an email. We have lots of emails that we send to people that helps clients and others. One of them talks about a will, and we have links where you can fill out your own will. Despite what you might read on the internet, everyone does not necessarily need a will. In fact, if you're a lower income senior or modest income, you may not need one. Why is that? Well, maybe you own the property with your wife or your husband, and then the home, and then at your death, the property automatically goes to the spouse. Okay. Now, let's say you're just a single person and you've got a home. Maybe then a will can make sense. You want a certain person to have it. But we also talk to people about in many states, what you could do is consider adding their name to the title to the home as a joint owner, so that when you pass away, the home automatically goes to that person without there being any probate. And in that case, a will wouldn't be necessary. Now, what about other assets? Well, maybe a car, but then you could add someone's name to the title of the car if you needed to. What about your personal possessions? Well, your personal possessions aren't worth a whole lot, generally, and sometimes people just, when you pass away, the kids just distribute them. or you could add someone's name to the bank account. A will, it always isn't necessary, but if you're really interested in one, we have an email, you can call us and we can send you that. And it has links where you can do a do-it-yourself will. You don't necessarily need to have an attorney do it for you. Okay? Patrick asks, he says, I got a judgment against me from a few years ago for $5,000. Will it go away after 10 years? It depends on the state where you live. Okay? Um, some states, a judgment can go away in 4 years or 5 years. Some states, it's 10 years. Some states, it might be 10 years and then they have a right to renew it for another 10 years. Or some states, they can renew it for 10 years and they can renew it ongoing. So it depends on the state where you live. You have to Google your state. How long is a judgment good for? And you'll usually come up with the answer. But once again, for a lot of seniors, they're judgment proof. A judgment doesn't mean anything. Okay. Um, so, we're happy to talk with you about that kind of thing. Richard asked, he says, Eric, does it do any good to head off any further action by merely telling the bank or collector straight that our only income is Social Security and I have no assets except for a homestead house in Florida? Probably not. I mean, you could, but the person you tell it to doesn't have any authority to write off the debt and say we're not going to collect it. Usually that's made at upper echelon levels and it's done automatically by the computer. When a person enrolls and helps, we send a cease and desist letter out letting the creditor know that your income is Social Security or pension, it's protected. And I kind of think that probably lessens the chances that a person would be sued. But it certainly doesn't eliminate it. But it doesn't matter if you are sued, you're not going to have to go to court. And you're going to be fine. And especially in Florida, unless you've got a bunch of acres, you've got an unlimited homestead exemption, and there's a provision in Florida that allows you to sell that home, and if someone had sued you and gotten a judgment, to get the judgment lien removed. So it's usually kind of a waste of time to tell someone that your income's protected. You could do it, but if you're asking my opinion. So Robert asked, I'm a member of HELP since February of this year. That's also the month I stopped making any more credit card payments. At what point should I expect to be sued by any of these companies? You may never get sued, Robert, and you might. It's probably not going to matter, okay? But a lot of times these days, the first time you get an idea when you're sued is you're going to get some letters from an attorney, or maybe more than one letter that files bankruptcy saying, hey, you've been sued. You can contact us. We can file bankruptcy for you. A lot of attorneys that file bankruptcy subscribe to a service that lets them know if someone's been sued. And we get calls quite often from people saying, I got these letters from an attorney saying I've been sued. I don't know anything about it. Well, because they subscribe to a service that lets them know when cases are filed in court. I used to tell a percentage of people that would be sued, and I don't do that anymore. Because if I said the percentage and it's more than that, people would be upset, and I don't want you to be upset. The bottom line is you don't need to worry. When a helps client is sued, what we ask you to do is get us to first 2 or 3 pages of the lawsuit. Then we're gonna call you and talk to you. We're gonna send you emails telling you why your income is protected, why you don't need to worry, and then we send a letter to the attorney that sued you, letting him know that your income is protected. It's not unusual, but not common, but it's not unusual for one of our clients after we send that letter to have the other side dismiss the case. Okay. Don't count on that happening, but I hear about it a lot. People, if you've been listening to this channel, you heard people tell me about that. Tell me about that. But once again, it doesn't matter. There really is no worst case scenario. Your income is protected. It can't be taken. You're going to be fine. And once again, the whole purpose of HELPS is, if you ever have a question or concern, you pick up the phone and you call. 855-435-7787. 855 helps us or helps US. And we don't turn anyone away. Okay. You can always call and talk to us. No, you can certainly get a will. I don't need a will because I only, you know, one thing someone did, which my parents did, or I think my mother did, is she wrote on the back of certain things. This goes to Eric. This goes to Lars. This goes to Dirk. This goes to Sigrid, or to my siblings. What if you have no husband or children? Good question. Um, well, that could be a good indication to have a will. Okay. Someone that's going to step in and take care of your stuff, and maybe you're going to donate it to the Goodwill or to some Salvation Army or some charity, your personal goods, whatever. No, this isn't only about wills. You can ask other questions, and I got a bunch of questions to talk to. Okay, to talk to people about today. So there's no one topic for this. We try to cover everything. So here's someone contacted us from Florida. They said, I'm on Social Security disability. I'm struggling to pay my bills. I have a couple of personal loans, and the bills are more than income. Can you help me? Yes, we can help you. You can help me. We can help you. Call us on the phone. We ask you a few questions. We save the information. Often our clients call us, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times before they decide to enroll. You can look at our other videos. You can look at our webpage. Learn all you need to learn about helps. Look at our reviews. Okay, I think we've got our reels are pretty much ubiquitous. They're positive because what we do is we give honest, complete information to seniors. Um, yeah, so like Joe says, I had a lawsuit withdrawn after I helped send a letter to the attorney suing me. They probably figure it's a waste of their time. Why proceed? You know, years ago when helps was new, that wasn't happening. But it happens a lot lately. One reason I think is we're pretty much all over the internet now. You know, I mean we always pop up near the top, different places. One reason is we're the only law firm in the nation that does what we do. We're the only one that does this. And what is that? That lets seniors know their income is protected, that they don't have to worry about their debt, and that we can protect them collectors harassing. We're the only one I'm aware of in the nation that does this. Okay? That they don't need to worry about a bankruptcy. Okay. Now I know I probably filed between 30 and 40,000 bankruptcies before I started Helps. Helps was started because I got tired of telling seniors when they came to me for bankruptcy, you don't need to file bankruptcy. They couldn't afford to file bankruptcy, but I knew when they went home, the creditors were going to harass them on the phone. So we came up with this idea of Helps. We practice under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act as their attorney so that collectors could no longer call or send them demand letters anymore. And the way Helps works is we represent you ongoing. It's not just one time. We're literally your attorney forever, so you don't have to deal with collectors ever again. That means if you enroll in Helps, you give us your creditors, they leave you alone. But let's say a year or 2 years down the road, you get a new letter from a different debt collector. You let us know. We send a new cease and desist letter out to that new debt collector, and they're going to leave you alone. Maybe you get sued 3 or 4 years in the future, and you're scared about it. You get us a copy of the lawsuit, and we're going to send a letter to the attorney that sued you, let them know your income's protected. We're going to call you, let you know why you don't have to go to court, why you don't have to worry. So that's what we do. We represent you so you don't have to deal with these collectors. Okay? So Mrs. H asked, um, in an unlimited homestead state with the 5-year time to sue, after all that, if they violate the law, can they be sued for money according to the law they violated if they keep? Yeah, you bet they can be. You bet they can be. Now, Helps has recently hired a new attorney, and we may, we're in the process of helping maybe some of our clients who where a creditor does violate the law or debt collector violates the law. Up to this point, we really haven't sued anyone, but we may start suing them. The reason is there's not enough attorneys in private practice that sue these debt collectors for violating the law. Someone needs to slap their wrist, and hopefully we're going to start doing that. But it doesn't happen that often. That people, the debt collectors, the legitimate debt collectors, are pretty good about following the law. Okay, I don't hear too many stories about seniors being sued beyond the statute of limitations. That would be a big violation. They could get in trouble for that. Okay. Yeah. Someone from North Carolina is talking about how hot it is. I feel for you guys. Although I'm in New Orleans, so I should empathize with you maybe. Okay. So good to have you here today. Thanks for your questions. So um, we'll go on with things that I've written down that might be helpful for you. You know, things that people have asked us questions or existing clients or new clients want to know about. This person contacts us from Virginia, and it says, um, this is from a paralegal. It says they have an RV they can no longer use or afford, and they still owe $20,000 on it. Husband is sick, and they haven't been able to use it for a long time. So if you have an RV, or for that matter, a car that you can't afford for whatever reason, maybe you don't need it, maybe it broke down, whatever, you can stop making the payment. You can let it go back. Eventually, they're going to repossess it. They're going to sell it. You're going to get a letter called a notice of deficiency. If you're a member of Helps, you get us that notice of deficiency letter. We send a letter to the lender to whom you owe money, and we let them know that your income is protected. You're not going to pay it. Now, and that's the end of it. They can't bother you anymore. Now, could they sue you? Yeah, they could. Are they going to sue you? Maybe. Probably not, but they could. Okay. If they sue you, we're going to contact the attorney that sued you and let them know that your income's protected. You're not going to have to go to court. So you don't need to worry. You can let a car go back. You can let that RV go back. Okay? So anyway, here's one from Colorado. I read this morning. It says a previous financial institution is going to send my negative checking account to a collection agency. Okay. I talked to the people at Capital One, that's their bank branch, about if Capital One will protect my Social Security from a garnishment. Whoever you talk to at your local bank isn't going to know the answer, or if they know the answer, it's probably not. It's probably going to be wrong. I'll see what they say. The branch staff told me I need to talk to the previous bank. They didn't know what to tell them. I just want to know exactly will it work if previous bank can't garnish Social Security. Capital One doesn't sound like they will protect Social Security funds. Yes, they will. The branch doesn't protect it. It's a department in the bank at the headquarters that protect. If they get rid of garnishment, it goes to one department, and they have a department that deals with garnishments. And that department, I can assure you, understands the rule. The rule is that since 2012, is they can examine where your money came from that was deposited in your checking account. If it came from a protected source like Social Security, they times that times 2 and protect that sum automatically, regardless if there's other funds in there. Like I said, if there's $1,500 in Social Security you get, times 2 would be $3,000. Now, your bank manager doesn't know that rule. Definitely the clerk behind the isn't going to know that rule. But the department in the bank that does the garnishing, that handles garnishments, they know that rule. Okay. Do original creditors sue more than collectors? I don't know. I don't think so. I think mostly it's collection agencies that do the suing, but original creditors can. Sometimes original creditors will keep the file, and then they'll hire a law firm to sue on their behalf. What all is considered your estate at death, since debts can be the responsibility of your estate? Well, I guess anything, but under 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 state law, normally, and I'm sure this is everywhere, any asset you have first goes to pay to bury you, okay, and then after that, it goes to pay the cost of your care before you died, and then after, if there's anything else left, it goes to your creditors, and after that, it goes to your heirs. So for most lower income or modest income seniors, time you get buried and medical debts paid, there's not any money left over to pay anyone else. But used furniture has very little value. I don't think most families would take mom's furniture, and if it's family heirlooms and stuff that's important to the kids, they just divide it up amongst themselves. No one's going to squawk about that. Used furniture is kind of worthless. Um, Tellers at the bank should know about the exemption rule. Well, the tellers should know a lot, but no, they're not paid to know about the exemption rule. And if they did, they'd probably get it wrong. But I guarantee your bank manager doesn't know about it yet either. I've never talked to one yet who does. How are we supposed to stop the debt collectors since they're not the original creditor? You don't need to stop them. So when you enroll in HELPS, Miss H, you give us the creditors to whom you owe money or debt collectors. And if you've enrolled in HELPS and you give us your original creditors, let's say, and you don't have any debt collectors, you're pretty much guaranteed that a few months down the road you're probably going to get a new collection notice from a new different debt collector, because the original creditor is going to turn it over to a different debt collector. It's not against the law for them to do that. And then you would contact HELPS, and we would send out a new cease and desist letter out to that new debt collector. That's one reason why our help is ongoing. It's not just one time. And the other thing to remember is if you got a question, you can always call. That's what we're here for. Jimmy says, if I'm dead, what the heck do I care if who takes what? They can have all my furniture. Well, that may be true, but in some families, it's me nobody care, but there's maybe some kids that care a whole lot about that. Yeah. Yeah, that's the nice thing about heaven. Since you're mentioning it, I don't think we're going to have, I'm pretty confident there will be no money in heaven. I think if there's money in heaven and we have these problems in heaven, we're not going to want to be there. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. But let's not get into a discussion about that. We're here to stick with things here on earth. And the fact is, if you're a senior and you're getting Social Security or pension or disability or VA benefits or any of this retirement income, you don't need to pay the old debt. It's safe. Thank goodness for our lawmakers. We're right here. They pass laws that protect this money for seniors, and they pass laws to prevent debt collectors from harassing you. And that's what helps us here, to stop that harassment. Don't want you to worry. I don't know if I read this one yesterday or not, but it looks familiar, probably because I read it before. But so this guy calls us. He's on Social Security disability, which is a form of Social Security, because of some medical issue, severe hearing loss, he says. He says, the collection agency is finally suing me. He says MCN, which I think is Midland Credit Management. I don't know if you hear that in the background, but I hear some awful loud thunder where I'm at right now. Anyway, well, and I'm reaching out because I've heard many times that Social Security is protected for 2 months from garnishment. Well, yeah, twice the amount is protected. Like you got it mostly right. I just want to know, what should I do, or should I worry about court serving papers? They're supposedly arriving by FedEx from tomorrow. I don't know if I should read the documents or throw them away. Um, well, I don't know if you should throw them away. I mean, if you're a member of HELPS, or you can read them, and if you enroll in HELPS, you were going to send a letter to these guys who sued you, letting them know that your income's protected. You're not going to do anything about it. We're going to call you on the phone, write you letters, and send you articles and videos that explain why you don't need to go to court, why you don't need to worry. That's what we're here for. And we're going to tell you can always contact us if you're worried. Okay? Well, a credit card, Brian says he can't wait to go to heaven. Well, I want to go to heaven, but I want to wait. I'm not anxious to go there just yet. I remember I heard a guy at church talking one time, and he was a bomber pilot in World War II. Okay. I had 30 missions. In fact, he told me one time he got sick and he couldn't go with his crew on his mission. And when his crew left, he was a bombardier. The replacement, he had a replacement. His plane got shot down. And he didn't find out for many years later that most of the men in the crew were able to bail out of the plane and survived. But he was so distraught about what happened that he kind of looked crazy for a while. But then he got assigned to a new bomber, and he flew till nearly the end of the war and told me some interesting stories. Anyway, when his wife passed away, he's in church. He said, "I miss her a whole lot, and I'll be glad to see her again. But I'm not that glad. I'm not that anxious to see her again." In other words, he wanted to live a little bit longer, and I don't blame him. So anyway, there you go. Will a credit card default judgment affect current home mortgage loan? And no, it won't affect your loan. No, the loan is going to. You could have see. It's called priority, and a mortgage loan is above anything. A mortgage loan, they don't care if you have a bunch of other people behind them, 100 different judgments. That won't affect the money that you owe them. If something happens and it gets foreclosed, they get paid first. So no, it won't be a problem. Yeah. Okay. So Richard talks about guilt and debt. We talk a lot about that. I saw some comment today or some answer, and someone said, I felt like the answer was, well, you're getting charged 30% interest on that credit card. Maybe with some guilt that goes around somewhere else. When you sign up for the credit card, they know that a certain percentage of credit card are not going to get paid. That's one reason why they charge interest. Um, you don't need to feel bad. I mean, I'm not encouraging people not to pay debt. If you've got the money, go ahead and pay it. But if you can't afford it, I don't think boy, listen to that. I don't think you should be going without food or medicine to pay debt that you can't afford to pay. So this person contacts us from Michigan. I'm retired and only have retirement income. I have Capital One credit card that I've got behind on due to medical costs. I tried to work with Capital One. They're waiving late fees but refuse to work with me regarding the interest, which is currently adding up to $180 a month. I have been paying them $50 a month, but my minimum payment is over $1,500 now. It is going to be charged off soon. I don't want to be sued over this, but since I owe $7,500, I suspect I will be. Well, we're going to tell this guy he doesn't need to worry about it. If he's worried about it, he can contact us. We can enroll him in the program. Capital One's going to have to leave him alone. So if you sell your house and there's judgments, can they be paid with the proceeds? Yes. Okay. In some states, they don't need to be paid. In some states, the lien can be removed. Maybe you own the house with someone else, and if you die, then the property would go to someone else and the judgment lien disappears. There's a whole lot of answers to that question, Farmhouse. But yeah, let's say you had a home that was free and clear. Let's say it was worth $100,000, and the homestead exemption in your state was $20,000. So you got a lot of what's called non-exempt equity. If a creditor were to sue you and get a judgment, they're not going to come after your home. That's not their practice. But if you go to sell the home, yeah, as part of the sale, there would be a title search. It would show the judgment, would be a lien, and before you would get your proceeds of the home, the proceeds would need to pay off that judgment. Okay, we go over that with people. Yeah, Katie talks about seniors get into debt for a lot of reasons. They try to help out their family emergency. They try to help out their kids, or it could be they get scammed. Maybe it just happens. Things get out of control. You get focused. You don't see the big. Seniors do not get into these problems intentionally, thinking, "Oh, I'm going to run up all this debt, and I won't have to pay it in the end because I heard Eric talk." That's not the way it happens. Is federal retirement protected also? Absolutely. Office of Personnel Management, railroad retirement, which is federal, post office, which is federal, VA benefits, which are federal. It's all protected. Okay. This person contacts us from Georgia, and they ask a question that we've talked about before. It says, our home is owned jointly between my wife and me. If a debt buyer gets a judgment against me only and puts a lien on our home, what will happen to the lien when I die? Well, I just explained that. But that wasn't one of you guys. That was a letter that we got. Okay, it was a note. And so what's the answer? The answer is if you own the property jointly with the spouse with survivorship rights, which is normally the way it is, then when you pass away, the home automatically goes to your spouse. And if there's a judgment against you only, that judgment is a lien on property you own. But when you die, you're in heaven. You no longer own the property. The property is automatically in your wife's name or your spouse's name. The judgment lien is gone because the judgment is only a lien on the person who has the judgment against them. And if they die, the property goes to the surviving spouse. Okay? Or it could be their children, it could be anyone. Okay? Okay, here's one person contacts us from New Jersey. I'm just looking for some information on retiring, and I have a large credit card debt and personal loan debt. And what can I possibly do about it? Okay, they obviously realize that when they retire, they're not going to be able to pay it. And they say, I'm looking to retire in the next 12 to 18 months. HELPS represents seniors that are on Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefits. And we also represent seniors that may be working and also getting some of these benefits. But what about someone who's not getting any of these benefits and they're still working? Well, then it kind of comes down to judgment calls. If someone called us and they say, this is June, I'm retiring in September or October, I'd probably be telling them, well, if you stop paying the debt, you may get contacted, but no one's going to sue you. There's not really any possibility of your wages being garnished or anything in the next 2 or 3 months or 4 months. And even with this person, 12 to 18 months, chance of they getting sued and their wages being garnished in that time is probably pretty remote. Whether we would represent them, we'd have to do a different type of letter because they're not getting Social Security. But we certainly talk to them about their situation. But we do represent a lot of seniors that come to us that haven't quit yet, but they're going to do it in the next several months. So this person in Florida contacts us. They say, I'm requesting help to defend me against a consumer debt lawsuit filed against me in, it gives the name of the court in Florida. I'm 67 years old and my only source of income is disability, retirement, and Social Security. Well, we don't represent people in court or that have been sued. We don't do that. That's not our job. We give legal information. We will send an attorney that sued someone, let him know that that our client's income is protected. They're not going to do anything. We understand they can get a judgment and remind them about the protected nature of our client's bank account. We do that, but we don't represent people in court. You don't need us to represent you in court. If you owe the money, they get a judgment, they can't collect from you. Okay. What about student loans? Paul asked. Well, was it last week or the week before last? The Department of Education changed their policy, and they're not going to offset 15. They're not going to offset 15% of Social Security for seniors that are getting persons that are getting student loans. They put a hold on that. I don't know how long that hold's going to last, but I suspect it may be a while until they can straighten out the program and get a system in place so that lower income and poor seniors that have student loans can get on some type of program where the payment is either waived or it's really small, like the IRS does. We've talked about that. You can look at some of our old videos. We talked about this. So right now, you got a student loan, you're going to be okay. And I got a stinking suspicion it may be for a while. Why do I say that? Well, I talked about it before. We did a video with senior living. If you want to get on senior living YouTube channel, there's a couple of them on student loans, and I did one recently with Jeff Hoyt about this. And I said my opinion, and I'm not getting political here. It seems like Trump has a thing about Social Security. He wanted to pass a law that there wouldn't be any taxes on it. I got a feeling that this administration doesn't want to see seniors getting their Social Security garnished, maybe even for student loans, but we'll see. A personal loan or help from a friend is a moral issue. Owning a corporation was a gamble for profit. All business gamble. Okay. When people are rolling helps, we always tell them, if you've got a debt that you want to keep paying, you can keep paying that debt. That's up to you. Sometimes people will call us, and one of the things we'll ask them is, do you have a credit card with a small balance or nothing is owed that you still would like to keep? And if they say yes, we'll say, you can still keep that credit card. As long as it's not backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card, you're not going to pay. Banks don't care about your other debt as long as they're getting paid. So if a person wants to enroll in helps and they want to keep some existing credit, obviously you wouldn't want it to be too big, but if it's something you can afford, maybe a $500, $1,000, you can afford the payment, and you don't have another credit card that backs that particular credit card, no other credit card that is backed by the same bank, then you can keep that credit card as long as you keep making the payment. Okay. This person from Pennsylvania says, I am, quote, judgment proof and cannot collect status. And I receive a lawsuit letter. How do I answer the letter, or do I just send a copy to helps to avoid default? My only income is $2,100 from Social Security and a small pension. Well, you don't have to answer the lawsuit. I mean, if you owe the money, you don't need to. We tell our clients it's kind of a waste of time. You go to court, you're going to lose. Um, yeah, you just get us a copy of the lawsuit. First 2 or 3 pages is enough, and we're going to send a letter to the attorney, let him know your income's protected. But it's not going to avoid a default judgment. They're likely going to eventually get a judgment against you. But your judgment proof, that means they can't collect from you. So when it says judgment proof, that doesn't mean they're not going to get a judgment. That just means they can't collect on the judgment. You understand? They can't collect on it. They can still get a judgment, but it's kind of meaningless. They can't touch your Social Security. They can't touch your pension. Okay. Um, this person contacts us from Florida. They're signed up with a debt settlement company. One of the ones we talked with at the beginning. There's debt management and debt settlement. Debt management are normally are nonprofit. Debt settlement are for profit. Not debt management companies make arrangements for you to pay your debts over 3 years. They try to negotiate the interest. Debt settlement tries to collect money from you and try to give them a lump sum to settle for less than what's owed. But neither one of them, as a practice, are going to tell you that your income is protected. You don't need to pay the debt. Anyway, he's with a debt settlement company. And 24,000 unsecured debt. And we told him about what we do, and of course, the debt settlement company never told him that his income was protected. And he wanted to look at it more, and he said he would call back later. Okay, this person calls us from California. It's a note from one of our attorneys that helps. His wife is making a $700 a month payment towards the debt. She's was sued by Citibank for over $25,000, and she has lots of debt. Wife is taking care of her mom. We went over how the income was protected. Um, and gave him the information. I mean, she doesn't need to pay the debt. Okay, here's one, and I highlighted something on this next one, a note from one of our staff. Uh, he gets Social Security and works part-time. He gets daily calls from the credit card companies. I'm unable to make the monthly payments. And he started calling us back in January and then February, and then he called us in March, and then he called us just yesterday. Looks like she enrolled yesterday, but one thing I wrote down that the paralegal wrote down here is that she used up her 401k to pay her debt. And she still owed a ton of debt. Don't use your 401k to pay a debt collector. You don't need to do that. Your 401k, that's your, or IRA, your retirement income that you put in yourself. It's protected under federal law. It can't be taken. If a creditor were to sue you, they can't touch it. And once you use it to pay debt, like this person did, now the 401k is gone. That's their little nest egg is gone, but they still owe the debt. You don't need to do that. Okay. So this person contacts us from Massachusetts, and they said they're 71 and they're retired federal worker. They're one of the workers that just got forced into retirement. And they're getting a pension, and husband gets Social Security. Was recently forced to retire from the federal government. $100,000 in credit card debt. Just kind of, and all of a sudden they're retired and they can't afford to make the payment. We explained how their income was protected. They enrolled, didn't need to worry. Okay. Joyce asks, I have judgment from Citibank. I texted the papers to helps. That was January 25th. My daughter who's is on the deed found that it is still pending. Should I worry? No, you can always call and talk to us. Uh, when you say it's still pending, it means they haven't got a judgment, I think is what you mean. That's not unusual. You um, even so, when you get served with papers, it might say you have to respond within 30 days or something like that. It doesn't seem to matter. Sometimes they won't get a judgment until 3 or 4 or 6 months down the road. But once again, if your income's protected, no worries. If your daughter's on the title to your home, when you pass away, the home goes to your daughter. Boom, the judgment goes away. Don't need to worry, Joyce. Oh, so I had a sweet lady I talked to this morning, called me from New Jersey. I had a pretty simple question, but I wrote it down. It says, she called and she said, if they come to my door to serve papers, do I have to sign for the papers? And I told her, no, you don't have to sign for the papers. I'm not aware of any jurisdiction that says you have to sign for a papers summons if you get served on them. And if they did ask you to sign for them, you don't have to sign for them. I got started thinking after I got off the phone. I said, let's say, you know, you couldn't write. You need to put an X, or you don't need to do that. The person who serves you the papers, once he serves you, he goes back and there's a form he fills out that he files with the court saying that he served you. Okay. Okay, so we come to the end. It's been a quick hour. This is Tuesday. We have 2 more days. We've got Thursday, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday for Helps YouTube Live. If you got any more questions, if you're new, and you can always call us toll free 855-435-7787. Plus the like button. Subscribe to our channel. Please tell people about Helps. There's a lot of seniors that are very thankful to find out this information. Okay. And the more you can do to spread the word, the more you can bless the lives of other seniors. And I can assure you, from 2012 when Help started to now, things have changed dramatically. We sign up a lot more people every day than when we first began, a lot more. And someday Helps will be a household word. It's becoming that way, but not even close to what it will be someday. But it won't happen unless I have your help, because a lot of seniors need this help. They need this information that we give. God bless, and I will talk to you tomorrow. 855-435-7787. Have a great day.